Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Holding down the middle of the day.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. You know, Live at Lunch just gave you a lot of Brian Kelly as he meets with the media up in Nash Vegas. Going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Greg Sankey's comments to the assembled media as well. We'll give you a little preview of the Texas A&M Aggies, give you a preview of the Missouri Tigers, who LSU plays this year. T-Bob going to jump on with us from Nashville in an hour and a half at the bottom of hour number 2. Got Casey Gaines and Jacob Beck back there on the ones and twos. And we're off and running here. It's a little bit of a delayed start, but that's all right. We're rolling along here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Brian Kelly just finished chatting with the big press room. There are a lot of different stops you make on a media day tour. Local TV, you got the ESPN guys, you've got a number of different places that you've got to hit. But the one that's always broadcast on television is the big ballroom with all the print media assembled, and he just got done with that. He was asked some questions about non-football things like AI and NIL and all kinds of stuff like that. He was also asked some questions about his football team. So I'll give you some of what I consider the high points here from Brian Kelly's chat for about 25, 30 minutes with the assembled writers. One quote that he talked on the football field that piqued my interest was about his quarterback, Jaden Daniels. And I'm sure you will hear Jaden say some of these things today as he makes his rounds as well up in Nashville. But one of the things that he was talking about was the progression of Jaden Daniels as a passer. And he said, look, the progression we saw over the course of the year was him stepping up in the pocket and making plays from the pocket as opposed to stepping up and immediately running. And that's the one where all the fans of LSU football and all of us who pay attention to it, that's where all the bells and sirens go off. It's like he quits on the play and runs too quickly. And he's got great speed, and he's got great burst, and he's very productive when he runs the ball. But the strength of LSU's offense is the talent at wide receiver, and every time he tucks the ball and runs is a time that those guys are not getting the ball down the field with a chance to make a big play. So to me, it just kind of goes back to some of the things that we heard from Les Miles over the years and some of the things that we're now hearing from Brian Kelly. And I juxtapose them against each other and say that Les was reluctant to open things up and throw the football and do things differently. What drove us as fans and assembled media nuts was the simplicity of the offense and the toss dive to the left and refusing to get with the tempo and the space and all that was coming very rapidly to college football. And the quote that Haney always goes back to, and famous one from Les, was the engine's pretty stinking good, talking about Leonard Fournette and the talk, entering that junior season of Leonard Fournette that started up in Wisconsin that ended up being the last year for Les Miles, was you got to throw the ball. You got to open things up. You've got to do things a little bit more differently. And they get up to Wisconsin, and the first 3 plays were handoffs to Leonard Fournette. And they didn't do anything differently. And while I think our concern is that Jaden Daniels has got to take some more chances and get the ball down the field, Brian Kelly's quotes are the opposite of what Les was saying. Like, we know. We want to do this. It's very much a point of emphasis in this offseason. That was obvious in Brian Kelly's comments late last year when they said, well, he didn't have any interceptions. And BK's like, yeah, he doesn't have any interceptions, but, like, is that a good thing? Does that mean we're not taking chances that we need to take and giving our players opportunities? And I go back to, like, the Florida game where LSU last year was just, clicking on all cylinders. They scored on their first 6 drives. And there were balls that were thrown up and given receivers a chance. And Brian Thomas goes and makes a play in the end zone. And Malik Neighbors goes and makes a play. And we know that Brian Kelly wants to see more of that. So it should give you a little comfort as a fan to hear what he's saying. Like, look, we're trying to coach this guy to step up in the pocket, not to get out of there and run, to keep his eyes down the field and make the throws. If that piece comes, and it comes routinely, he did it at times last year, just not quite enough. But if that piece comes, LSU's offense becomes an absolute nightmare. You've got NFL guys on the offensive front. You've got studs out wide. You've got a veteran quarterback who started a ton of games, who's got great speed, and all these weapons around him. It's really difficult to manage as a defensive coordinator. You know, I listened to Greg McElroy earlier today, and I'll get back to Brian Kelly in a second, but this kind of led me into this direction. I was listening to the SEC Network earlier today. Those of you that were at work and obviously can't listen to SEC Media Days all day. Greg McElroy said this when they were talking about LSU. He said they might have the best offensive line in the SEC. They might have the best wide receiving core in the SEC. They might have the best quarterback in the SEC. They might have the best interior defensive lineman in the SEC, and they might have the best defensive player in the SEC. That's coming from Greg McElroy. And that should carry some weight with it. He's on air every day in Alabama. He works for the SEC Network. He's Football 365. He's got a pretty good idea of what LSU's got. And for him to say that all those units might be the best in the league tells you kind of where this team is. And it actually counteracts what Brian Kelly said today, which is the next quote I wanted to get to from BK. I'm sure Matt will have all this cut up later today. But Brian Kelly said today that I wrote it down, so I don't know if it's exact, but it's pretty close because I was listening and just writing. He said, "We will have a football roster that will be able to compete against Georgia. Is that right now? No, it's not, but it will be." And again, that is an odd quote because Media Days is sunshine and rainbows. Media Days is possibilities and projectability and optimism. We've got a great team. This guy's going to have this year. This guy's going to break out. This is a returning star. Like, there's just not a lot of pessimism this time of year. Y'all have heard a million times me talk about the calendar in college sports, specifically college football. And for him to, again, double down on a quote that we heard from him a couple weeks ago and say pretty directly, we're not ready to compete with Georgia, surprises me. And he knows more than me. He knows more football than me, and he certainly knows his personnel better than I do. But the team looks pretty good to me. They don't have to beat Georgia 10 times. If they got to Atlanta, they'd have to beat them once. And so it's an odd message to send, in my opinion, because that's all we're doing here in Media Days is kind of sending messages to your players that can read that quote and say, you're not ready to beat Georgia. Now, I guess theoretically, you don't have to be ready to beat Georgia in July, and you might have to be ready to beat them in December or January. And maybe you could connect the dots and say when February or when December or January rolls around, now you're ready. You weren't ready in July when I said that. But he didn't have to go that far with the quote. So it caught my attention for him to say, we're not ready to compete with Georgia. If Clark Lee gets up there and says that, I'll nod my head. Even if Shane Beamer wants to say that, I'll say, okay. But I don't expect to hear that from Josh Heupel or Nick Saban or Brian Kelly. I don't expect to hear that from Jimbo Fisher. But we did hear that from Brian Kelly today because he was asked about, again, the gap between Georgia and the rest of the SEC, and he said we're not ready to beat Georgia, which I thought was interesting. The last piece that I want to touch on before I get to Greg Sankey's thoughts at the top of SEC Media Days was asked about Mason Smith and what he could do to help the defense. And this is a point that I've kind of harped on the last couple of weeks as we started to dip our toe into football. And this is an X and O deal, and this is something I talked about last week, but Brian Kelly said last year after Mason Smith got hurt, and maybe postseason, that man, he just would change the way the defense works. And he went back to that line of thinking today when he was talking to the media, and he said, last year we didn't have a guy in the middle that won a lot of one-on-ones. Obviously, Jaquelin Roy had a nice year. Now I'm not using Brian Kelly quotes. That was a Brian Kelly quote that we didn't have a lot of guys in the middle that won a lot of one-on-ones. And then he said, and I would add on to that, I would say, yeah, Jaquelin Roy had a nice year, and Mekhi Wingo had a really solid year that garnered some postseason recognition. But if you hear Brian Kelly talk, it's very clear he sees Nathan Smith as a cut above everybody else they've got on the defensive front. And the quote that he gave today was, Mason will win those one-on-one matchups, which means you're going to have to put a second person in there, which means the numbers work to LSU's favor on the edges. Makes a ton of sense. But again, I'm not capable right now of going back and looking at game tape from Mason Smith's freshman year and projecting what he's going to be 2 years down the road, which is what it's going to be next month. But it sounds like, based on what Mason Smith did in fall camp last year, that he's a massive difference maker for the LSU defense. And BK believes that. And that's huge, because you start having to divert enough attention to Mason Smith, you're not paying enough attention to Mekhi Wingo. You're not paying enough attention to Harold Perkins. That's where you get into a problem. So for me, with Brian Kelly today, 3 things that stood out. Talking about Jaden Daniels and how he's being coached to sit in there and take shots down the field. The football team not being ready to compete against Georgia, even though it looks pretty good to me. And then Mason Smith continues to draw effusive praise from the coaching staff, and it feels like that's a guy who might change the way they do things on defense, which is exciting. So lots and lots over the next 4 days from up there at SEC Media Days in Nashville, Tennessee. T-Bob is going to join us in an hour and 15 minutes to talk about what the morning and early afternoon have been like there, kind of get a vibe check. He's had a chance to talk to the LSU players, probably done some hits on some other channels. It's always a lot of fun. There's a lot of content, and we're excited to bring as much of it as we can to you. We'll talk about Texas A&M, give you kind of my full scouting report on the Aggies. Coming up at 1:30, we will talk about Missouri. Coming up in hour number 2, we do have some baseball to get to, which I told you was going to happen when I did the tease for the show on Friday, because LSU had a transfer portal edition and some other movings on in college baseball, so we'll get to that at 2 o'clock. Still plenty to get to. Come back and we'll chat about what Greg Sankey had to say on a couple of big topics, including football scheduling. That's next.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team have been in the game for 30 years, redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you just don't have enough space in your closet, you got shoes and suitcases, you got jackets and coats, and you don't have the room, it's just a mess. Declutter. Let David Duvall and his team come in and customize a closet for you. It'll be beautiful. It'll be functional. They'll use the cubbies and the mirrors and the shelves and the racks and all that goes into a custom closet. And the best part, they're not going to charge you to rip out your current closet or the installation cost of the new one. They're just going to charge you for the cost of that unit. That's what they'll do to listeners of the Hunt Palmer Show. So tell David Duvall when you call that you heard about him on our show. The website is onebathandclosets.com. You can check out all the testimonials. You can check out pictures of their great work, and you can request that free consultation. Doesn't cost you a penny to have David Duvall and his team come out and show you what they can do. Onebathandclosets.com, onebathandclosets.com.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This summer, retirement is a state of mind. Whether it's a mid-morning activity or an early bird special, grab a Coors Light and chill like you're retired.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
For a Tuesday edition of Off the Bench. We continue our coverage from the SEC Football Media Days in Nashville as we recap LSU's Day in the Lights, and Ben Watson of the SEC Network joins the show. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I'm going to talk Aggies here in about 10 minutes. Give you my thoughts on what Texas A&M has in store for this 2023 season. I was listening to Live at Lunch earlier today, and Matt was on, Moscona, and he said he believes that this will be Jimbo Fisher's last year in College Station, that he'll be fired. So that's interesting. I'll give you my thoughts on the Aggies in 10 minutes. But first, Greg Sankey always opens SEC Media Days. He did today. With a couple of nice tributes. Of course, there was a tragic shooting in a Nashville school a couple of months ago, and Greg Sankey welcomed 5 of the first responders to that incident up on the stage, and they received a standing ovation, which was very, very cool. And then Greg Sankey, who generally wears a tie to do his State of the Conference talk up there in the at Media Days, and he did not have a tie on today. And he said it's because I recall this time last year being in Atlanta and discussing how worthless neckties were with Mike Leach. Leach famously hated wearing suits, did not want to wear ties. And Sankey said as a tribute to Mike Leach, he did not wear a tie to Media Days today. So a couple of really nice touches there as Greg Sankey started his talk for SEC Media Days. And a couple of things stood out to me. One, which I don't have strong feelings toward, was he has a strong desire for Congress to get involved in name, image, and likeness. He said it's a nonpartisan issue. We need regulation nationally. We cannot have conferences that feature 12 states and have 12 different rules and regulations for schools that are supposed to be competing on equal ground, and instead one school's got this opportunity and the other state doesn't. It's just he doesn't believe that that's the best way to go about it. And he was very, very adamant about this. He harped on it continuously. that's above my pay grade. I don't spend a lot of time dealing with what laws Congress is passing and who's in charge of what bill and what it should and shouldn't say. They've opened Pandora's box here from an NIL perspective, and it's just hard for me to imagine reining things in significantly. You basically said, if you have the ability to make money, go do it. And it's so big and it's such a complex issue that I don't have strong feelings on where that's headed or when it should head that way. But Greg Sankey certainly does. And that was, I think, the most passionate plea that he gave. Couple of just newsworthy items that I picked up. That Media Day is going to be in Dallas next year. I know that y'all don't care about that because y'all don't go to this. You just take in the content. But that's obviously a hat tip to Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference July 1 of next year. And 2 weeks later, Media Days will be right there in their backyard in Dallas. So, again, I think that Hoover does it wonderfully. Apparently, Atlanta was a little bit of and I think things are going really well in Nashville. Sure, Dallas can figure out a way to host SEC Media Days. But the other question I thought that was reasonable to ask and in a good spot was a local Nashville television reporter asked Greg Sankey if there was an opportunity for Nashville to host the SEC football championship game once they build a new stadium, which they got approved. It's going to be domed. It's going to host Final Fours and football national championships. And obviously the SEC's got a great relationship with Nashville. The SEC basketball tournament is there every year. And so the question I thought was a good one, like, hey, can Nashville get the SEC championship game for football? It's going to have a dome, big city right here in the footprint. You got a good relationship with them. And Sankey pretty much put that out immediately and was like, we're focused on the greatest conference championship game in the sport in Atlanta, and basically dropped it at that. And so we talked about this last week on the show. Like, would I like to see the SEC championship game move around? And as you all know, if you listen to me with any sort of regularity, that the only thing I care about in terms of rule changes are how does it impact LSU, and moving it around and potentially getting it into Houston or New Orleans would be great for LSU. Nashville, not so much, but it just appears that the SEC is very comfortable hosting that game in Atlanta and is going to leave it there for the foreseeable future. So, every time LSU gets there, Georgia's on the other side, which I guess theoretically can change once the divisions go away. You may see Alabama in Atlanta. But either way, it's just tough for LSU to make that trip, because a lot of times when LSU goes to Atlanta, bigger goals are on the table, right? You go to the SEC Championship in 2019, you know that you've got playoff game to travel to. You might want to save your funds for that as opposed to going to see conference championship game. Same thing applies for 07 or potentially 03. It's tougher to get to, and if there's a bigger game that's coming up the next month, you want to save your funds to get to, the SEC Championship game may get cut out of your plans there. Doesn't really get cut out of many Georgia fans' plans. They can Uber to the game and buy tickets. So I thought it was a good question. I was interested in the answer, and turns out that that's not something that they're looking into in any way, shape, or form. The SEC Championship game for the foreseeable future is going to be in Atlanta. Last topic I want to talk about with Greg Sankey was he asked about realignment and further conference growth. And he kind of tap danced around any sort of firm answer. His answer, and I quote, was, "We are a super conference. I'm focused on growth to 16, which obviously is where you get with Texas and Oklahoma." And he continued, "It's not been a topic for the Southeastern Conference. Do I think it's done? People say I get to decide that. We know who we are. We're comfortable with who we are." I'm comfortable saying by the time I leave this earth, whenever that may be, that there will be more than 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference. There may not be a Southeastern Conference. There may be one entity that has Ohio State and Michigan and all those Big Ten teams, and you come in and it looks like the NFL. But it's not going to stop because the money doesn't stop. And it's a consistent arms race. And the Big Ten has blown up the idea that geography is the most important factor. Money is always the most important factor. And if the SEC can bring in Notre Dame or bring in somebody from out west, whether it's Washington or Oregon or Stanford or whoever, that they believe drives television ratings in a different part of the country and creates additional dollars for the member institutions, it will be done, because that's the most important thing. It's not rivalries. It's not about basketball. It's about money. And Greg Sankey or the next commissioner is not going to sit there and take the most powerful conference in collegiate athletics and let the Big Ten run away from it. That's not going to happen. So while I think it's fine to say right now I'm not really focused on it, the fact of the matter is it's always got to be near the top of his mind. It's keeping up with the Joneses. And the Joneses is the Big Ten. So I don't know that I don't think it's imminent. I just think it's coming at some point. And you could gather that from just the way things have gone in the last 10 years. But Sankey said right now, you got a super conference and we're good to go. So we'll see how long that does last. That was kind of my big picture thoughts on Greg Sankey and what he had to say today up in Nashville at SEC Media Days as they kick off. It'll be 4 days. Today is LSU. Brian Kelly's already met with the big media room. It is Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M. It is Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri. We're going to talk about Missouri a little bit in hour number 2. When we come back, I just want to give you my thoughts on Texas A&M as we start to dive into football season. We'll talk Aggies next.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $25,000 off new 22 Ram 1500 SCA trucks and incredible deals on all remaining 2022 inventory, all with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
Make this summer your backyard party year with Chris's Specialty Foods. Wings, burgers, brisket, steak, and boudin, plus great Cajun side dishes. We do all the prep, and you enjoy laughing with friends and family. Chris's Specialty Foods, Millerville, New Orleans, Prairieville, and Frisco.
Everybody loves Chris's authentic Cajun meat.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR presented by Relief Windows. We're live from Radio Row at SEC Football Media Days, and the Tigers are on the big stage. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, let's talk a little football here. LSU, of course, taking their turn at SEC Media Days today. Gave you my thoughts on Brian Kelly's time in the big room at the top of the show. We'll chat about Missouri, who's also going today later on in hour number 2. But I want to get to Texas A&M in this segment right here. The Aggies were obviously atrocious last year. I don't want to talk about the last game they played, even though we will briefly. But they were terrible last year. They were 5-7. And that is year 5 of the Jimbo Fisher era. It was kind of the perfect storm. They had injuries at quarterback. Haynes King was hurt. Max Johnson was hurt. They lose Anaya Smith. They had some issues with the freshmen, suspensions and whatnot, and they played poorly. And that all boiled together for 5-7. They lost to Appalachian State 17-14. And they lost 5 games by 6 or fewer. They lose a 4-point game to Alabama where they have the ball and a chance to make a play at the last. They're inside the 5-yard line. Chance to win that game, they don't. Go to South Carolina, get beat by 6. Play Ole Miss in College Station. They lose the game by 3. They go to Auburn. If you'll remember, Auburn had already fired Brian Harsin. They gave Cadillac Williams the interim tag for the last 2 games, and that was the first one. Auburn sold the place out, and they played really well on defense. And A&M's offense was anemic, and Auburn won a 13-10 game. And they looked really sluggish in a win over UMass, and then they crushed LSU somehow in the only game all year where they scored 38 points or more. Look, Jimbo has been there for 5 years. In that span, they have gone 39-21. In SEC play, they are a 23-18 program under Jimbo Fisher. 23-18. The offense was the problem last year. The defense wasn't great, but the offense was atrocious. They were 101st in the country in scoring offense last year. I mean, 14 points on App State, 10 points on Auburn. They only scored 30 points twice. One was on Sam Houston, who's an FCS school, and one was against LSU in the last game of the year, where they just ran it down LSU's throats. So, Haynes King's gone. He transferred out. Devon Achane is gone. He's taken his talents to the NFL. So, those 2 guys who were a lot of what they did last year have moved on, but there is a lot of talent on the A&M offense. Connor Wigman is a talent. I mean, he's 6'2", he's 215 pounds, he's got a big arm, he runs pretty well, and all that stuff is very easy to see. You can turn on a highlight tape from high school and tell that he's got the physical attributes. What impressed me about Connor Wigman last year as a freshman was his ability not to make the big mistake. If you go back and look at his numbers against LSU, they weren't jaw-dropping. I thought, just blindly, if you asked me today, okay, what were Wigman's numbers in that game against LSU? I think I would tell you he probably went 20 of 27 for 270 and 2 touchdowns. It wasn't that good. He was 12 of 18 for 155 yards in that game. 2 touchdowns and no picks. He threw 8 touchdown passes last year. He did not throw an interception. There were times where LSU went after him in that game, and he just made good decisions. And that impressed me. A lot of times, there are plenty of high school quarterbacks who are 4 or 5 stars who have good athleticism and big arms and all the measurables, and you throw blitzes at them, or you disguise coverages, or you get in front of a loud stadium, or you get a little pass rush, and they make the horrendous mistake. And Wigman just didn't do that. And that's what impressed me about him. And he's got a lot of guys to get the ball to. Aniyah Smith decided to come back after the injury. He's really explosive. Evan Stewart was a star last year as a freshman. He was a 5-star, one of the best receivers in the class, and he showed out. It was great. And then you've got Moose Muhammad, who's also awesome, made the one-handed catch against LSU. They've got guys. The problem is they didn't block a lick last year. And you've got a lot of those guys back, and they've gotten a year older, but that's going to be really the question. I mean, Bobby Petrino can come in and put in some new things, and they can try to be a little more creative than what Jimbo was putting out there the last few years. But if you can't block, you just have no chance. And A&M could not block last year, except for the LSU game, which just made no sense. Maybe it was my fault. I did the Aggie thing on the Friday. Video got a lot of hits. And maybe that was the reason why A&M could block LSU and nobody else. They couldn't block UMass the week before that, but they blocked LSU. That's the question. I don't really care who the running back is. It might be Le'Veon Moss, Louisiana kid. Might be Amari Daniels. Might be the 5-star Reuben Owens. They've got fine running backs. They've got elite-level skill players, and they've got some good tight ends as well. And I think their quarterback's good. I think the offense has a chance to be real solid this year for A&M. The defense wasn't very good last year either. They led the nation in pass defense, which you go, oh, that's pretty good. Well, there's a reason for that. Because they were the worst run defense I may have ever seen in the SEC. They were 123rd in the country against the run. Listen to some of these numbers A&M gave up against the run last year. Arkansas ran for 244. Bama ran for 288. Auburn ran for 270. Florida ran for 291. And that all paled in comparison to the Ole Miss Rebels, who ran for 390 yards on Texas A&M last year. Now, they were counting on a lot of freshmen to play at defensive front last year. And those guys are a year older. Shamar Stewart, former 5-star. Shamar Turner, former 5-star. Walter Nolan, former 5-star. That's where A&M's got to get better, is stopping the run. They could not stop anyone from running the ball. 390 yards against Ole Miss, come on. That's pathetic. No wonder you were number 1 in the nation in pass defense. They were running wind sprints from the backfield on you. So they've got to get better on both lines of scrimmage. That's the key for A&M. If they can be better at both lines of scrimmage, they have enough talent to win games. The schedule is challenging, I would say, as you would imagine. But you step out of conference to play Miami in week 2, who's not great, but, you know, it's not Rice. And you got to go there. That game against Arkansas and Arlington seems to be always close and always full of drama. Finally, Arkansas got the monkey off their back last year and beat them, thanks to that flukish play. Bama's in College Station, but I'm not going to pick them to beat Bama. And their East draw is tough. They're at Tennessee. That's going to be a tough game for them to win. I I wonder if A&M can keep up with Tennessee. I don't think Joe Milton's as good as Hendon Hooker or even close, really. But I do think that Tennessee offense is going to score points. And do I trust A&M to get out of neutral and go score with these guys? I don't know. And they're at Ole Miss. They're at LSU. And they've had trouble with the Mississippi schools at A&M. They just have. In the last 6 years, they're just 6-6 against Ole Miss and Mississippi State. We're not talking about Georgia and Bama here. We're talking about the Mississippi schools. And A&M's had trouble getting over the hump and beating them. So it's going to be a fascinating fall with the A&M football program. Matt's already told you where he stands. I'm sure he's going to give you more of this one after further review later today. But you got to wonder where the threshold is for Jimbo. I got to think 8-4, you're safe. 9-3, certainly. 10-2, absolutely. 11-1, they're doing backflips. But you start to think about 7-5, which is very doable. And you wonder if the brass in College Station are willing to deal with that. My gut tells me probably not. Like, I'm with Matt there. So I'll go through their schedule game by game, and we'll see kind of what I think preliminarily. But you open with New Mexico, and you get a win there. And then you go to Miami, and I think they'll win that game. They should be better than Miami. So I got them at 2-0. Then they play ULM. I got them at 3-0. They host Auburn. I've got them 4-0 there. I don't think Auburn's going to be great. They play Arkansas. I would probably favor the Hogs there. For the sake of the discussion, let's go A&M and give them 5-0. Alabama in Kyle Field, 5-1. At Tennessee, 5-2. Then they welcome South Carolina in that all-important cross-divisional permanent matchup that we all look forward to so much. With South Carolina, I think they win that game. That gets them to 6-2. At Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss wins that game. So that's 6-3. They beat Mississippi State, and they beat Abilene Christian to go to 8-3. And then you come to Baton Rouge, and maybe LSU puts the death knell in the Jimbo era. It's possible. I mean, certainly if they come in there with 5 losses, that would be it. 4 losses, we'll see. 3 losses, I think he's okay. But if they came to Baton Rouge at 7-4, you could theoretically finish off the Jimbo era, I think. I just don't believe the Texas A&M, with the commitment to win that they have put forward, with all the fundraising, the stadium, the football facility, the other football facility, the coaching staff, the NIL, all that investment is simply not going to allow Jimbo Fisher in his 6th year to lose 5 games. That's just, I don't care. It's north of $70 million if they were to buy him out. And I think they would do it. But right now, Jimbo and the crew at College Station, they're thinking about winning the West. That's probably, I'm curious to hear. I'm sure Matt will have guests on. Excuse me, I'm fighting a little bit today. But I'm sure Matt will have guests on from the Texags crew and whatnot, and they'll have a better pulse of what they think's going on than certainly I do here. But it makes a lot of sense. We'll see what that result may be. That's a look at the Texas A&M Aggies. We'll chat about Missouri in hour number 2. T-Bob Hebert is going to join us from Nashville. Thanks to Hudco Roofing, the folks at Rev Business as well, for making our coverage from SEC Media Days possible. When we come back, we'll close out hour number 1 next.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
The importance of
doing this fortified program and offering it to people down here is, number one, the only real chance you're going to get to do this is when you put on a new roof or build new. And through companies like HUDCO, who's kind of leading the way in this thing, it's going to offer the customers a huge advantage in the insurance market and the price of their insurance.
You know, we're not looking to make a fortune off fortifying. We're trying to give you a better product than our competitor at the moment. I'm trying to do something that he can. I'm trying to give you something better. So a lot of these insurance jobs, you're getting a re-roof, you're only paying your deductible. Let's sit down and talk about the fortified and let's see what it does to your insurance premium. You're getting a steal.
Yeah.
You're getting a brand new roof and a fortified certificate for your deductible, essentially. And I think we're rocking and rolling.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
All right, let's say ah.
Where'd my spotlight go?
Super weird, but we can take care of it.
Get in and get better at Patient Plus.
For a Tuesday edition of Off the Bench, we continue our coverage from the SEC Football Media Days in Nashville as we recap LSU's Day in the Lights, and Ben Watson of the SEC Network joins the show. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
HUDCO Roofing is bringing you live coverage of the 2023 SEC Football Media Days today through Thursday. You can find highlights from the week on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Our coverage also brought to you locally by Rev Business and Relief Windows. All week long, T-Bob and Jacob will be on Radio Row from 7 to 10 a.m. for Off the Bench, and Matt will be in the same chair on After Further View from 3 to 6. We will chat with T-Bob at the bottom of hour number 2. LSU's time just about wrapping up there at Media Days. And they're up there with A&M and Missouri for day one. Jimbo Fisher just went up to the podium and said howdy. That's one of the cool things A&M does is say howdy all the time. I don't mind the thumbs up. I think that's cool. I think the Aggie War Hymn is awesome. I think their band is fantastic. I think that saying howdy is dumb, and I think the bubbles they do in baseball games are dumb. But again, I'm the foremost authority on all SEC traditions. I determine what's awesome and what stinks, and howdy is dumb. But Jimbo Fisher is chatting with the media up there. I'm curious what his answers will be and how direct the questions are going to be about his relationship with Bobby Petrino and what he expects. I think this is an opportunity for some more pointed questions. You're not going to get as much of that in the local media. It's going to be a little bit softer around the edges there. Here they can tee it up, and I think it's as direct as like, all right, well, who's calling the plays and what's your input on that? Because there's no doubt in my mind. We went back to, I was talking about the Brian Kelly comment about what Jaden Daniels needs to do, and I mentioned Les Miles saying the engine's pretty stinking good and believing in what he believes in. And there's no doubt in my mind, not one, that Jimbo believes the best person to call plays for Texas A&M is Jimbo. There's no doubt in my mind. But the results are very difficult to argue with when you look at what they did last year and not being able to move the football, scoring touchdowns on only 20% of their drives, which was worse than the SEC. Like, they were just awful. And I think he would say, look, we just didn't execute. We got to execute it better. Got to throw it. We got to catch it. We got to block it. And that's what he would say. And that's the same thing Les would say. The plays are fine. You just got to execute it. But the fact of the matter is that that's not true. Certainly, if you execute every play perfectly, you're going to do well, but no one does that. It's about putting your players in the most advantageous positions. And lining up with a couple tight ends and a bad offensive line and trying to run the football and work off play action and go slow is not the best way for that team to succeed. And I don't know how high-flying Bobby Petrino plans on being. It was pretty good in 2011. I don't know how good it is in 2023. It's been in the FCS for a while. So that's a huge storyline, and I'm curious what Jimbo's comments are going to be on that matter. I have no doubt that at some point it'll come up, and I'll figure it out, and we'll get to it in hour number 2. And we'll certainly get T-Bob's thoughts on it. But that's probably the most interesting storyline surrounding Jimbo Fisher's time at the podium, which is going on right now, and we'll get you some quotes on that as we move forward in the show today. Appreciate you spending your Monday with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Hour number 1 is in the books. Open the show, giving you some of my thoughts on Brian Kelly's time up at SEC Media Days in the big print room. Thoughts on Jaden Daniels, thoughts on Mason Smith, thoughts on his roster and where it stands with Georgia. If you missed any of that, you can always catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on-demand page, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or over on YouTube. YouTube, Hunt on LSU, Hunt on Saints. 2 different channels that we're working towards here. If you could subscribe to those, we would certainly appreciate it. Get your football content right to your fingertips. We touched on Texas A&M, touched on Greg Sankey's comments to open up Media Days as well. We got plenty to do in hour number 2 as well. We'll have some thoughts on Missouri coming up at 2:15. We'll have T-Bob from Nashville at 2:30. And I'm going to start hour number 2. I told you I was going to do this in the promo. If you heard that all weekend long, LSU did get a baseball commitment over the weekend, actually on Friday right after my show ended. I want to give you my thoughts on that. There's been some movement in the transfer portal regarding some players that LSU was reportedly linked to. So I've got some baseball thoughts coming up at the top of hour number 2. I know we're into football. That's okay. We're going to tiptoe into baseball briefly to kick off hour number 2 before we get to Missouri and T-Bob. So don't go anywhere. We're going to take a break for SportsCenter. We will be right back. You're listening to the Capital City's leader in sports talk. It's the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast office products.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has $25,000 off new 22 Ram 1500 SCA trucks and incredible deals on all remaining 2022 inventory. All with Bayou's 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big D and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Is Sports Center.
I'm Christine Lisi. 1 hour to go before the NFL deadline for franchise tag players to sign long-term deals. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler's reporting the Cowboys and running back Tony Pollard aren't expected to agree to such a deal by the deadline, barring a late change. He has signed his franchise tender and attended the Cowboys' offseason program, unlike the other 2 franchise tag running backs, the Giants' Saquon Barkley and Raiders' Josh Jacobs. Free agent receiver DeAndre Hopkins has found a new team. ESPN's Diana Rossini reports he's expected to sign a 2-year deal with the Titans. A big lift for Tennessee's offense with Hopkins' arrival, says Titans safety Keith Byer.
D-Hop, man, that's a guy that you can always depend on to move those chains. I think for him, he's going to be a guy that Rodney Chan is going to be able to look to. No matter if he's covered or if he's not, he's open. So you can throw him the ball. You can depend on him.
Keith Byer on ESPN Radio Mornings. Rays ace Shane McClanahan returns from back tightness for tonight's series opener against the Rangers and one of the best lineups in all of baseball. NHL top overall pick Connor Bedard signed his entry-level contract with the Blackhawks.
The new Venture X card from Capital One. Earn 10x miles on hotels and rental cars and 5x miles on flights when you book through Capital One Travel, plus 2x miles on all other purchases. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now, Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Thanks for hanging out with us here on this Monday. Hope your work week off to a good start. T-Bob Hebert in 30 minutes from Nashville talking SEC football. I'll be honest with you. Look, last night I was at the house. I was finishing up dinner, got the kitchen cleaned, turned on SEC Network, and they were playing that documentary or little series, whatever it is that they did, where they were going through the history of SEC football by decades. It's called Saturdays in the South. And, between that and knowing that Media Days was cranking up today, it got me going. It got the football juices going a little bit. Y'all know me. I need some time after baseball. I got to decompress. I tell you this every year. I can't be the guy that just jumps into football full steam ahead sometime in June. Like, that just doesn't. That can't click for me. Got to be a build-up. But, I was feeling it last night. Went to the fridge, grabbed a beer, watched a little, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow stuff that kind of got it going a little bit. That said, I can still find some time to squeeze in some baseball. By now, you know this. Now, LSU picked up a transfer portal commitment on Friday. It was right after this show went off the air. And, of course, that was Mac Bingham. Mac Bingham is a former Jay Johnson player. He recruited him, signed him, and coached him for 2 years at Arizona. He got off to a really good start in the COVID year as a freshman, hit 361 in 15 games. Then as a sophomore, had a really solid year, hit 305, started 38 games that year. Found a little bit of a power stroke in his third year, even though the batting average went down to 277, but he hit 6 home runs that year. And then last year kind of put it all together as a fourth-year player. Hit 360 as a leadoff man for Arizona. 10 home runs, had an on-base of 432, and plays a good outfield as well. This player was described to me by someone in the program as basically Gavin Dugas offensively with a little better speed. He hits from the right side. He does get on base at a really solid clip, had a 432 on base this year. There is pop in the bat for the 10 home runs this year. So not necessarily a guy that profiles as a prodigious professional. We saw Gavin go in the early rounds, but signed for $20,000. But a really good college hitter. And I think a guy that could slot into the top of this lineup. You've got the meat of your lineup, certainly potentially. Tommy White's going to be in the middle of that. You feel like Jared Jones and Paxton Kling can grow into that type of role in the LSU offense. You think Brady Neal's got a pretty high ceiling offensively. But as far as the top of the lineup and some veteran presence that's proven, not betting on the come, Bingham fits that to a T. So are there some maybe more talented players that have gone in the transfer portal? Yes. Does this fit work exceptionally well? Yes. It took some time for Bingham to commit. I'm told that there were some professional teams that contacted him about an undrafted free agent signing. You're looking at a kid who's not young by the professional standards. He's been in college for 4 years. This will be a fifth. And sometimes the professional ranks can come to you and say, hey, look, you really don't want to start your professional clock that late. But there are some guys that value this time in their life. They want to experience college at the highest level. And LSU affords that. So Bingham, I think, comes in, is one of your starting outfielders. You know, Pearson's in that mix. Kling is in that mix. You've brought in a really talented freshman class. Maybe Ashton Larson figures into that mix as well. But to me, I think you're very, very likely going to see Mac Bingham at the top of the lineup and in the outfield early on, potentially right out of the gate. So really nice ad by Jay Johnson and his staff to go get Mac Bingham from Arizona. And another signal that the SEC continues to go to these high-level programs and pull the better players to the Southeastern Conference, making the sport more and more regional. Do I think it's awesome and healthy for the sport? I don't. Do I think it's awesome and healthy for LSU? I do. Like, that's just LSU is going to benefit from this far more than just about anyone, and they certainly did. Luke Hill is a guy that a lot of folks were talking about potentially committing to LSU. He went on Matt's show last week. He's a Baton Rouge product from Episcopal, was out west at Arizona State. Really talented shortstop, good athlete, good bat, just finished a really solid freshman year. Oh, well, LSU might be in on it. He's a Baton Rouge kid. Well, there may not be room at LSU. They've got a lot of depth at middle infielder. I know who does not have any depth at middle infielder. In fact, almost none, and that is the Ole Miss Rebels. And Luke Hill did announce his commitment to Ole Miss earlier today. He's going to be up there on Mike Bianco's squad. Look, Ole Miss lost Jacob Gonzalez, their shortstop. He's gone. And they had a transfer portal shortstop from the state of Florida who came to Oxford and then left. And then they had their most draftable high school prospect was a really highly thought of shortstop, and he signed. So Ole Miss had just about nothing at shortstop, and Luke Hill is going to be there to help fix that. Another topic I wanted to talk on baseball here is the Cardinals have signed almost their entire draft class. By now you know that Cameron Johnson, Cardinals draftee, 20th round, everybody's sweating. Oh my gosh, what are the Cardinals going to be able to pay him? Well, I went through all the numbers today, and the answer unequivocally is no. The Cardinals cannot pay him. If you look at their top 10 round signees or draftees, they have signed 9 of the top 10. And at that point, with just their second rounder to go, they're $70,000 over, which is fine. You've got 5% to go up over before you have to pay luxury taxes. But essentially what I'm saying is unless their second round pick decides to sign for $5,000 and they've got a ton of extra money left over, which is not going to happen, the Cardinals don't have the money to sign Cameron Johnson. So any sweat of the Cardinals swooping in like the Orioles did with Carter Young last year and signing Cameron Johnson to a contract that we believe is close to what Johnson is asking for is nada. They just don't have the money. They have just about used, they were right about at slot with just about everyone, and they were over on 4 of the picks, all by about 25, 30 grand, and they were under on 1 pick by about 60 grand, and it all evens out to where they've spent just about their entire draft pool. So you don't have to worry about the Cardinals and Cameron Johnson. I don't see enough information posted on the Twins to get a real feel for what Ashton Larson is looking at. They got to sign their players, which they have 7 days from today to get that done. So we'll see some of that this week, and I'll kind of hint as to how things are going. But I don't think LSU's high school draftees are at huge risk of signing professionally. They certainly could, but I just don't think that the money's going to be close to what they had in mind. So that's a good sign for Jay Johnson. This year, a little bit different than last year in the draft. Last year, so top-heavy. Some guys you knew you were going to lose, but you ended up getting the Chase Shores and Brady Neal and Paxton Kling and some of the guys that were significant draft risks you were able to bring in. This year, not as many high-end draft risks, and you only lost one. Blake Mitchell signed for $5 million with the Royals. Everybody else is kind of stead in line, and you've got a really talented class coming in because of that. So there's my attempt to jump into baseball briefly here. We got football the rest of the way. T-Bob's going to be with us in 20 minutes talking Missouri, A&M, and, of course, LSU from Nashville. When we come back, I'll give you my thoughts on Missouri. We usually don't care about Missouri. Who gives a rip? Are they even in the league? Well, we play them this year, so give you my thoughts on Missouri next.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Hello, Samantha, dear, I hope you're feeling fine. And it won't be long
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, on Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com. Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all of that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows. We're live from Radio Row at SEC Football Media Days, and the Tigers are on the big stage. Join us 3 to 6, 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, we've talked LSU. We've talked A&M, the other team joining those two in Nashville today for the SEC Media Days festivities is the Missouri Tigers. Eli Drinkwitz took over in the COVID year. Went 5-5 that year, beat LSU. Remember that? And I think there was a lot of optimism around Missouri when that happened. Then in 2021, a 6-7 year where they went 3-5 in league play. And then in 2022, another 6-7 year where they went 3-5 in league play. And Missouri, for whatever reason, decided at that point to hurl an extension at Eli Drinkwitz. Clearly like never going above 500 in 3 years. Doesn't seem like extension worthy to me, but what do I know? The one that got away for Drinkwitz and Missouri last year was the Georgia game. They had Georgia on the ropes. It was in Columbia. They had the lead. They were in control of the game, and they couldn't get the first downs necessary late to finish it. If you get a win there, and instead of 6-7, 3-5, you're 7-6, 4-4 with the win over Georgia, I can really sell that. It's harder now. But they did just give him a huge extension. So what does Missouri expect? Well, I think they expect to be a little better this year. Brady Cook is back at quarterback. He started all 13 games for him last year. Threw for 2,700 yards, scored 20 total touchdowns, 7 picks. In the Arkansas game, he ran for 138 yards. But he got hurt in the offseason. And there's thought to be a little bit of a quarterback controversy there with Jake Garcia coming in from the University of Miami. He was a transfer in, was a 4-star quarterback, got some ability. So those are the two guys they're kind of looking to become the quarterbacks. Whoever the quarterback is for Missouri, job number one is to get the ball to Luther Burden III. Luther Burden III is one of the most highly rated recruits Missouri's ever signed. He's a 5-star wide receiver. Last year had 5 receiving touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 1 punt return touchdown. He kind of did it a lot of different ways. He's 5'11", under 200 pounds, but he's electric with the ball in his hands. So that's the guy they're going to depend on offensively. Defensively, Blake Baker is back there for the second year. You know Blake Baker from his time at LSU as a linebackers coach, co-defensive coordinator. He really did a good job last year. He lowered their points per game allowed average by 8.7 points. So more than a touchdown less per game Missouri was giving up with Blake Baker there. And they've got 8 starters back on the defense. So it should be a pretty functional group defensively. The schedule is okay. It's okay. It's not great. They start the year with their 4 non-conference games. They'll play South Dakota and Middle Tennessee, and then they'll have the one real non-conference game, which is Kansas State. That game's in Columbia, Missouri, former Big 12 game, and K-State lost Deuce Vaughn, so we'll see what they've got. But and the other one's Memphis, which is a game they're playing in St. Louis for some reason. It's an odd scheduling quirk. As well, you know that they draw LSU out of the SEC West. That game is in Columbia. It'll be LSU's first trip to Columbia for a real football game that's not COVID sanctioned since the Tigers joined the league. That's hard to imagine. This is the 11th year of football. Played 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. This is the 12th year of football. Beg your pardon. And LSU will be making their first trip there in front of a full stadium in Columbia. I know there are a lot of people that are planning on making that trip. Matt went on live at lunch earlier today and said, look, this is going to be Eli Drinkwitz last year at Missouri. I just find that hard to believe. This has been my talking point with Missouri really going back to last year, especially when they gave Drinkwitz the extension. That's a know-who-you-are type move. That's a team that doesn't have delusions of grandeur. That's a team that's not falling into the trap that Nebraska fell into. That's an athletic department and an administration that has hired Eli Drinkwitz, that likes his energy, that likes his youth, that likes his exuberance, that likes his football acumen, that's okay with the results, which have been 500 or under all 3 years, because they feel like the program is stable and has a chance to climb towards that ceiling. The Missouri ceiling is low. The Missouri ceiling is Mississippi State-ish. The Missouri ceiling is Kentucky-ish. Yes, they did something that only Kentucky's never done and Mississippi State's only done once, or maybe twice, and reached the SEC championship game. But they got dusted both times. If you've got a functional Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida, Missouri can't sniff Atlanta. But you were at the end of the Richt years. You were in the Muschamp years in Florida. Tennessee was in the dark ages. And Missouri found a way to get to Atlanta back-to-back years. And then showed who they were when they got there, which is a team that doesn't deserve to be in Atlanta. But they know that, which is why they're extending this mediocrity. So I disagree with Matt. I mean, sure, if 2-10's in the equation and you lose to Memphis and Middle Tennessee, then we'll have a different discussion. But I think if he goes 6-6 again and beats Kentucky and Memphis, that they're fine. I think they think they're fine. I'm curious what Eli's demeanor is going to be. He's been quippy, I would say, in a lot of his press availabilities, and this certainly lends that opportunity. But how clever and quippy can you be when you're sitting here and through 3 years, you've won 17 games and you've lost 19 games? Like, how funny can you be? Can you take shots at other coaches like he's done at times? I don't know. But Missouri, to me, is always the most boring team in the league. Vanderbilt's right there with them, but Missouri's just such a non-factor to the LSU fan, the LSU observer, the LSU beat writer. But this year that changes because LSU goes there. And I think that as good a break as I think that is for LSU to get one of your road games in a non-hostile environment against a lesser team, it's the opposite for Missouri where you got a home game against a team that's significantly more talented than you. Now, Missouri beat LSU 2 years ago, so we'll see. But that was a little different time, a little different place. I think the storyline for Missouri this year is with stability at quarterback with Cook, with Drinkwitz having an extension, do they take a step up or do they continue to sit there and waddle in mediocrity? Because Tennessee's kind of got it going now. Georgia's a freight train. Kentucky's been solid. And you got to think Napier's going to figure something out in Gainesville. So you start to look around. Even Shane Beamer's kind of got it cooking. And so the last year in divisions, if you're Missouri and you look around your division, like, who do you feel good comparing yourself to? Certainly Vanderbilt. Is that it? Do you think Florida's still down to the point you can handle them? Do you just not buy into what South Carolina did late in the season last year? Do you think Kentucky's on the downhill? Because it would be hard to argue that Tennessee's in the downhill, and we won't even mention Georgia. I mean, I don't feel great comparing them to anybody. Arkansas, maybe. And that's your permanent. But LSU's coming in as well. So, look, we're going to spend more time on other teams than Missouri because they're a little more interesting, and I think you've got a little better handle on that. But Missouri's up today, and LSU plays them, so it's worth a look. 8 starters back on defense and some continuity at quarterback, but I just don't think they have the Jimmies and the Joes, and I just don't think they win a lot of games. I think Missouri's not going to be great this year, but I disagree with Matt on the front that they're going to fire Eli Drinkwitz. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he'll be back. So that is our thumbnail on the Missouri Tigers at this point. Let's take a timeout, and when we come back, we'll chat with T-Bob.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana loyal, elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana like Corey Barr. Corey Barr has grown national acclaim in the culinary world. Next Food Network star, Chopped, beat Bobby Flay. He did beat Bobby Flay. And with that national acclaim has come success for him, but what's important to him is that he comes back and helps the state that he grew up in and loves. Operates 3 businesses out of Monroe. He's a champion of Louisiana. If you know of a champion of Louisiana like Corey Barr, we want to tell their story, and LWCC gives us that opportunity because of their Champions of Louisiana program. So go to lwcc.com/champions. You can look at all the great champions we've talked about over the last 14 months, and that includes Corey Barr. What you can also do is nominate another champion of Louisiana. So go there, nominate a person, a nonprofit, nominate a business that's doing philanthropic work in our great state, and we'll tell their story right here. Corey Barr is a champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana loyal.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. and we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
It was a humid day, barefoot children play, looking for that summer shade. Time just slips away. Oh, Louisiana, some kind of hold on me. Like cypress stumps, your roots are planted deep inside of me.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust Poll of the Day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, live at lunch, on Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the Poll of the Day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCoRoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Tilley have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Rev Business started small in 1935. We built our reputation by providing hometown service with Louisiana hustle. For nearly 90 years, we've expanded across our great state, through the swamps and across the Mississippi, bringing fiber optics from the capital to the North Shore and down the bayou to the coast, all to connect your business with the world. Rev is about big business technology with small business personal service, powerful solutions, unmatched local service. Rev Business.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100
for a Tuesday edition of Off the Bench. We continue our coverage from the SEC Football Media Days in Nashville as we recap LSU's Day in the Lights, and Ben Watson of the SEC Network joins the show. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Huge shout out to HUDCO Roofing. Huge shout out to Rev Business. Huge shout out to Relief Windows. Because of the fine people at those three businesses, we get to send T-Bob up to Nashville to drink too much and talk about football. Is that right? Did I have that right?
Yeah, that's about right, Hunt. What's going on, man? I'm actually chilling out poolside a little bit, just enjoying a nice little afternoon.
There you go. Well, we appreciate you, taking some time to chat with us. How are the vibes? How's the setup in Nashville? They're starting to move this thing around after a long time in Hoover.
It's fantastic, man. Look, Atlanta last year was cool, but I don't know. This is. I mean, whatever. Like, I'm not exactly the best person to answer this because I've never been to Nashville before, and it's a really cool city, and there's a ton going on, and so I think it's very exciting. I went on a little run around the city, bought me a cowboy hat, checked out Broadway. Very interesting. Very much. I'm very much like a Bourbon Street, but a bit cleaner and with more country music.
Yeah, last time I was on Broadway, LSU was playing Tennessee in the Super Regional a couple of years ago, and some homeless guy took out a knife and started waving it all over the place, and everybody started running towards the back of the bar. and I didn't move because I was watching the baseball game, and my wife screamed at me because she was pregnant and thought I was endangering my life because of a stupid baseball game. So that was my last experience on Broadway. So hopefully you have a little more fun.
That might be the most fun Palmer story I've ever heard, dude. I mean, that's how you know you're committed to the game.
I was like, I'm trying to get to Omaha here.
All the stereotypes are true though. Like there is live music everywhere. Like I remember even I was going to a few different shops or whatever, run around, and I even one there's like a high end kind of almost like boutique, right? So nice hats, nice boots, and then of course just this guy just crooning. I mean, he had one of those beautiful voices I've ever heard. And I'm like, damn, dude, Nashville is just full of these people. So yeah, it's cool, man. And look, and everybody seems real excited for the SEC to be here. The setup's fantastic. Brian Kelly did a great job of kicking it off earlier today. And it was a very smart. Imagine that, Greg Sankey in the SEC office. With another very smart business decision to move this thing around.
So I've kind of been on the kick for the last 3 months that LSU would be picked to win the West by the media in SEC Media Days. It moved out of Alabama, which kind of skewed the numbers toward Alabama and Auburn in terms of voters because they had more credentialed media there. But based on your conversations with some media members up there, do you think LSU will be picked to win the West?
I think so, dude. I mean, but I think there's a few factors at play. I think first off, I think LSU obviously does return a very strong team, right? They're one of the only teams bringing a quarterback here, which can't be ignored. I mean, J.D. Daniels second in the Heisman odds right now. You heard Brian Kelly, too. He opened some of the offensive line last year when he did this press conference. He didn't even know who his five were going to be. Had no idea. And then they still didn't know after the first game. I mean, they continue to move around. So, the difference between last year and this year cannot be understated. So LSU has very, very strong frontline starters. They may not have the depth that Bama does, but Bama's got question marks everywhere at quarterback, both coordinator positions, and even where they have been good, they've never stopped recruiting well on the offensive line, but the offensive line had been good last year. So this is not to say that Bama's done or anything, but objectively, there are a lot of reasons why LSU should be the favorite to win, or people could say they're the favorite to win. The only other thing I would say that's a huge element as well is there's a bit of Bama fatigue. It's been basically just check the box, Bama's going to win forever now. So this is if you're presented with an opportunity where you have an objective chance to, you're not going out of your way to say, I think this other team's going to win it, then people are going to do that. You know what it reminds me of, dude? Do you remember that game, I don't know, years ago, Bama, Georgia, and it was the first time that Alabama was underdogs in 80-something games. And then what Alabama do? They went and beat the crap out of Georgia. Yeah. But it just felt like Vegas, and everybody was so desperate. Surely at some point there should be a moment when this team is not the favorite. And so I think you got a bit of that going on right now as well.
I'm curious your thoughts as a former player, now a media member. When you hear Brian Kelly say a couple of weeks ago that he thought that year 3 was when they could have a chance to win a national championship, and then today he was asked if they're closing the gap on Georgia, and he said, we will have a football roster that will be able to compete against Georgia. Is that right now? No, it's not. Are you surprised to hear him say that?
No. I think honestly, I think that's a pretty honest assessment. But even then, I think it's also a little bit of Lou Holtz, playing it down in the public, but like all other good kind of takes, I think it's mixed in with honesty as well. As a coach, you should feel like your program is going to be in a better spot in year 3 than year 2. I mean, it'll be another year of the process. You'll have a class that would have come in a couple of years ago that understands what's expected of them. So, I get where he's coming from. That said, I do think that it feels like it's lined up here in year number 2. This is a really nice window. Nobody in the SEC is returning quarterbacks. Georgia's going to be incredible, but they will have questions about whether or not Stetson Bennett and Mike Bobo can do what Todd Monken and Carson Beck and Mike Bobo can do what Bennett and Monken did when they were at their best in the biggest game. So, and you got the quarterback. So I get what he's saying because as a coach, you should feel like your program's and roster overall is going to be in a better spot in year 3. But this is a sneaky good year 2 window for LSU.
You got a chance to talk with.
But they're also like not on the level of a Georgia. I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but like they're not on the level of Georgia. Like I'm not saying you can't beat them, but if you play that game 10 times, I mean they're winning the majority.
Yeah, you got a chance to talk with the players when they got in there before they kind of did the whole circus. Anything notable, whether it's a tire or an answer you got, or what was kind of the
no, it's
something
just
you had
a
from
confidence, man. Just a general confidence, and just kind of everybody being very aligned in their answers. You know, obviously they've been coached up on the idea of championship expectations because they're not shying away. They're constantly mentioning and reinforcing, no, our goals are to win a championship this year. But they make it very clear that that can't be your focus, and you can't start to just believe that it's going to happen, that the only way to get there is to adopt the day in and day out process and do those daily hard things that you need to do to be great. So it was cool, man. It's just such a different, everything is so different from last year for LSU.
For sure.
From the grouping of players to the latent confidence of Kelly to the fact that he doesn't have to do a preamble, he just goes straight into questions. You can certainly feel that they have a very good squad, and I really enjoyed getting to talk to John Williams, Kai Wingo, and Jaden Daniels. Those are good kids too.
The quote that's gotten the most run this afternoon as we shift over to Texas A&M is Jimbo was asked in the big print room if Bobby Petrino is going to call plays, and his answer, as I read Brett McMurphy's quote, says, "I'm not going to get into that. Bobby was hired for a reason. Tremendous guy, tremendous football mind. Hopefully he'll call the game and have suggestions." Jake played for Fisher. I mean, what do we think about this?
Hey, I think Jimbo has all the leverage. What are you going to do, fire him?
I think maybe.
Yeah, good. He still wins. I think he probably wants to. If that is his answer, that sounds like a man who's going middle fingers. If I'm going out on my terms, and you can all just deal with it. Which, I mean, I think I understand that if I'm him. That buyout creates unovercomable leverage. Like A&M can threaten and hem and haw and do all they want, but Jimbo wins no matter what in the end.
What are the thoughts on A&M, either from you or what you've heard? I know y'all had Lucy on briefly today. What are the A&M vibes after 5 and 7?
I don't know, man. I've been kind of talking myself into A&M being pretty good here. And there's a few reasons for that, but I mean, you got an entire offensive line return. It feels like they maybe started to find something in the year, certainly at least that LSU game where they just bullied you and beat up on you. You got Wegman coming back. You got a nice Smith. You got a really good defense. Like, you remain more it really does come down to, can that offense just be functional? And there's Jimbo still maybe being in charge of it. And I don't know how much he's going to update philosophically, and that's going to remain a problem. But the offense will be better because they'll probably have less bad injury luck and they'll have more experience. Now you lose A-Chain, but again, so I don't know, man. I kind of like A&M third in the West right now behind LSU and Alabama.
I can paint a picture here where A&M gets to Baton Rouge at 7 and 4, and they may be playing for Jimbo's job here. Like that is easy to kind of spell out.
Well, I mean, after last year though, like, nothing's hard to spell out for A&M, right? Like, that was an unreal bad year.
Yeah.
It legitimately boggles the mind how a team with that much talent could do that poorly. But you did see a bit of the potential in that LSU game, you know?
Disgusting.
And granted, you're not going to be able to ground and pound and just beat people up all year long. Like, you got to be more dynamic through the air, and he's going to have to update some things. But we're not too far removed from him going 9-1 with Kellen Mond.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the crazy part about A&M is who knows what to believe. They feel like the most volatile team in the entire conference.
Anything that excites you or interests you at all about Missouri? I know we play them this year, so that's one thing. But
The only thing that excites me there is, and I know this is a dangerous game to play because you can play this with anybody, but like, think about how close Mizzou was to being 5-3 with a Georgia win.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because and again, I know you can play that game, so let's not even give them the Georgia win. They should have beaten Auburn. Like they had to go out of their way to find a way to lose to Auburn, right? And so all of a sudden, you're talking about a 4-4 Mizzou team that's tied for third in the East. So like, they extended Drink in the offseason, so obviously they believe in him. So like, no, Mizzou is not the most terribly interesting team, and they brought like a bunch of linemen to media day, but kind of under everybody's radar, there was more good there than we sometimes give them credit for last year.
What about tomorrow? What do y'all got coming up on the show, and what are you looking forward to in far as storylines tomorrow?
I don't know, man. I don't even know who is tomorrow off the top of my head. We got a bunch of guests. Rivers has been holding it down on the production side, handling it. So we got a bunch of people rolling through on OTB tomorrow. Day 2 is always more fun than day 1 to me because you have people coming through, both planned and unplanned. Whereas, and you have like actual press conferences and things to talk about. Whereas today's show is kind of like a big like preview, almost excitement show. So, I'm just enjoying the kickoff to football season.
Well, get back to enjoying it. We appreciate some time.
Take it easy, Hunt. Later, dude.
That is T-Bob. He and Hester will be live 7 a.m. tomorrow. And as he mentioned, but media days didn't start until the afternoon today. Like Sankey was at lunchtime. So people were like not there yet when they started at 7 o'clock this morning. I've been down there on Radio Row the first morning before things start, and there's really not a lot going on. So he's right from that perspective. Tomorrow, they'll have like coaches cycling through and media people all over the place. They'll just be pulling people. Rivers is up there running gas. So they'll be locked and loaded tomorrow with a ton of content up there in Nashville. And again, we appreciate the folks at Hudco Roofing, Rev Business, and Relief Windows for bringing you our coverage from Nashville all week long. Matt will be up there starting here in 15 minutes. So let's step aside. We'll come back, play some Take It or Leave It. We'll toss things back up to Nashville for AFR. It's 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Hey there, little buddy. What's the matter?
What's the matter? My windows, siding, and my door. That's what's the matter.
Relief Windows can fix all that. I got you. Pop, pop. What's up?
Oh my gosh, look!
Curb appeal. That's a good-looking neighborhood. ReliefWindows.com.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When is a taco more than just a taco? When it's Government Taco. Voted best tacos 3 years in a row by 225 Magazine, Government Taco puts the most delicious spin on tacos the capital area has ever seen. With creative combinations like the Magna Carrot, the Filibuster, or the Steak of the Union. Plus perfect tortilla chips paired with the best salsa and queso you've ever had. And happy hour every day from 3 to 6 p.m. and all day on Thursday. Government Taco, 5621 Government Street.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Monday's AFR, presented by Relief Windows. We're live from Radio Row at SEC Football Media Days, and the Tigers are on the big stage. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, let's close things out here on a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll take it or leave it.
All right, first one here. Former Tiger Justin Jefferson received a perfect 99 rating on Madden 24. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that consider him the best receiver in the league. You know, when I think like 99, I would think like Calvin Johnson, who's like 6'6" and can jump out of the gym. Jets is not necessarily that guy, but he's a hell of a wide receiver. So yeah, I'm all for it. I think he thinks it's cool. I haven't played Madden. Oh my God, I hadn't played Madden since I was in middle school. I think I was a huge NCAA guy. I mean, in college, I was playing NCAA all night, every night, and even a little bit after college. But Madden's never been my thing. But getting a 99, that's pretty cool.
Carlos Alcaraz defeated Novak Djokovic to win his first Wimbledon, his first Grand Slam of his career. Also, Alcaraz is the new face of tennis. Take it or leave it.
I'm probably going to take it. I was not surprised to see this, but it did like crystallize it for me that no one aside from Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, and Murray had won Wimbledon since 2004. I think I was sophomore in high school at that point. So that's nuts to have that long a run. And Alcaraz is kind of the next guy. I mean, he's 20 years old. Djokovic is knocking on 40's door. And you feel like Alcaraz is going to ascend, and Djokovic at some point is going to descend. So I think it'll – I mean, look, the golden era of tennis was great for the sport. No one would ever argue that the Federer, Nadal, Murray, Djokovic era was a bad thing. But I think a little variety is really, really good. Now, what I would actually like is if an American would show up once in a while that we could get behind. I know Eubanks had a really good run this year, but there's just been no sustained American success since like Roddick. And so that's just, you got to think we could produce a really good tennis player at some point.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened in forever. So I would prefer it if that happened, but it looks like Alcaraz is going to be the next guy.
Last time it was 2002. Leighton Hewitt won it. So yeah, hopefully we get some transparency there at Wimbledon. T-Bob will sing karaoke this week. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Look, I mean, there's a lot of karaoke happens at media days. Barrett Solis like the ringleader over there. Now, they had a bar they always go to when it's in Hoover, so they'll have to figure something out. But I can't imagine they would have too much trouble finding a place to sing in Nashville. Like it's Music City. That's what they do, and they certainly have a lot of acts that are playing in some of those bars. But I would think you could you could find a spot to get some singing in. So I would bet on that. Look, you had last night, so that's Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, maybe even Thursday night. I'm not sure what the guys are coming home or what the deal is, but you could have 5 nights in Nashville. I'm thinking T-Bob's grabbing a mic at some point.
All right, last one here. The Texas-Oklahoma game will be called the All-State Red River Rivalry starting this season. Sponsored rivalry games. Take it or leave it.
I'm less offended by the sponsor, like being Allstate and having a sponsor on it, than I am the fact that everybody went nuts about the name of the game. That is the annoying part. You're going to tell me you can't call it the Red River Shootout because that's like promoting gun violence, but we're going to have the shotgun formation and we're going to have the pistol formation and we're going to do all that. Like, it just, at a certain point, we got to let common sense prevail and realize that it's okay to call it the Red River Shootout. But Red River Rivalry is fun. Red River Showdown was kind of dumb. And I don't care that Allstate wants to jump in. There's money. That's the point of all of this. We talked about at the top of the show, Sankey, about, talking about expansion. And I'm telling you, it's going to happen because there'll be more money. And that's what we're all chasing. It's always about money, 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 money. And so if Allstate wants to jump in and pay a bunch of money, I'm sure those schools will jump in there and take it just fine. So and that's now a conference game here as of next year. So that'll do it for Take It or Leave It here on this Monday. Tons and tons on today's show. Really enjoyed it. I've been looking forward to this week for a while now. One, because it signals the start of football season and content, but two, it's just fun to kind of dive into some different teams and look at some different things every day. Of course, today was LSU's turn at the microphone. Brian Kelly was there, Jaden Daniels there, Mekhi Wingo there, Josh Williams there. Tons of sounds going to be available on Off the Bench tomorrow morning, and I'm sure Matt has got a ton of sound coming up for you on AFR as well. We did not have that, but we did have some reaction to what Brian Kelly had to say. He talked about Jaden Daniels. He talked about Mason Smith. He talked about where the program is right now, and I gave my thoughts on that at 1 o'clock. Greg Sankey addressed the room to kick off Media Days. I gave my thoughts on that at 1:15. Spent the entirety of the second half of Hour 1, so 1:30 on in the first hour, talking about Texas A&M and where they are. That's a fascinating team that I'm sure are going to be pretty polarizing this week in Nashville. There will probably be some that are feeling good about A&M, probably some that don't feel very good about A&M, and that's pretty rare. Usually you're kind of on the same page with most of these teams. I think A&M may draw a little bit more of that, so I talked about them at the end of hour number 1. I did manage to slide some baseball in today. I found a way to get some transfer portal talk in with baseball today at 2 o'clock. LSU added Mac Bingham from the transfer portal. I gave my thoughts on the scouting report on him. Gave some thoughts on Cameron Johnson's situation with the Cardinals. There's no way they're going to be able to sign him. Luke Hill, the Baton Rouge product from Episcopal, who was out at Arizona State, has transferred into the SEC, not to his hometown school of LSU, in fact, to Ole Miss. Gave my thoughts on that at 2 o'clock. Then we got into some Missouri talk at 2:15 before T-Bob joined us from up there in Nashville. Again, want to thank HUDCO, Rev Business, and Relief Windows for their support of our coverage of SEC Media Days. They make that all possible. If you missed any of my show today, you can always catch it on demand. 1045ESPN.com's On Demand tab. All the shows are there, archived every single day. You can catch us on Google. You can catch us on Apple Podcasts. You can catch us on Spotify. Anywhere you catch your audio, you can get us, and you can also find us stuff on YouTube as well. Folks hanging out in the Bayou Ford chat, throw a like before you leave. I'd appreciate that very, very much. Got 2 channels on YouTube I'd love you to subscribe to, Hunt on LSU and Hunt on Saints. It's all football. All our football segments, they're going to be archived there. If you want our football content, you can subscribe. It'll get right to your fingertips. Excited for tomorrow's show as well. Looked up the schedule for SEC Media Days. Tomorrow we'll have Vanderbilt, which does nothing for me. LSU doesn't play Vanderbilt, and they're going to lose all their league games probably. We have Georgia, who is interesting to talk about what's the situation at quarterback. They'll have Kamari Lassiter, Brock Bowers, and Cedric Van Pran to join Kirby Smart. Auburn, new head coach Hugh Freeze, and Auburn will take the podium at 1 o'clock tomorrow, and then Mississippi State will round things out with first-year head coach Zach Arnett. I'm excited to hear from Zach Arnett because I've heard that that's not a super interesting personality. I'm just curious as to the way that he carries himself as the head of an SEC program for the first time. So those are the schools we'll talk about tomorrow. That'll do it for me. I've done all I can do here on this Monday, but we're going to throw things back up to Nashville, Tennessee after this top of the hour break from Matt Moscona and AFR. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. Hunt Palmer Show.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN.